Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to be demonstrating discipline letter functionality. I will remind everyone my disclaimer each time so that YouTube doesn't take down my video that this video is used for training purposes only, that no real students or data is portrayed in this video, and any likeness to any real student is purely coincidental because we do use a test server. So what we are going to do today is show you how you're going to be able to achieve what you should be seeing on my screen right now, which is just a discipline letter inside of PowerSchool. There is flexibility that's going to allow you to customize this letter, but I wanted to show you an example of what this will look like. So in this right here, you just see a PDF view that has a school name, the address, the phone number, the principal's name. It lists it says to the parents and guardians of, with the student name and the address, the date, and then there's the verbiage. And you will get to build the verbiage that you see at the top of this letter here and at the bottom of this letter here, as it will need to be suited for your district. This information here in the center is what's going to be pulled from that discipline record inside of PowerSchool. You can run these letters for one student at a time, for one incident at a time, for one student at a time with multiple incidents if you want to, or you can run it for multiple students, singular incident, or multiple students, multiple incidents. So it runs pretty much any kind of way that you would want to. And what I want to do is now go through how you build out the letter, what it tags off of inside of a discipline record, and show you how you would then run that report. So I'm going to minimize this letter right here. I will say that the setup for all of this is located at district office. So as you create these letters, you are going to have to think as a district how you will want to scope these letters out. So inside of district office, and I am in the new user interface, you are going to go to district management, you are going to go to behavior, and you're going to see this new area right here called discipline incident letters. So when I go to this page right here, as it loads, I've only built one letter out to give you an example here. To my knowledge, there is no limit on the amount of letters you can build. So you can build out of school suspension letters, in school suspension letters, detention letters, whatever it is that you want that's going to tag off of those discipline records that you would want to produce. Now, because this is created at district office, this is a district setting. So if you're a district with multiple schools and you're used to being able to do discipline letters differently by school, you can still do that in here, but you will need to make sure that you somehow set it for which schools it can be used at. So what I want to do first is pop into the letter that I've already created. So I started out by testing, when we piloted this feature, by testing an out of school suspension letter. So I'm going to click on the letter ID. That's going to take me into the guts of this letter and what the build looks like. So this will show you what y'all will need to be thinking about as you go to create yours. So the first is the name of the letter. So if this isn't this, in my case, I just named it OSS letter. You get free range on what you want to call that. You can pick which schools you want to assign this letter to. So here are all of the schools that are in my district office. So if I were to drop down this list of schools right here, that's what you see inside of here. Right now, I've said that only the high school can attach this letter and have it in its choice of a drop down for a student. You can do that, or you can select multiple ones. So if you hit the control key, so I'm pressing the control key, I can choose more than one school. So maybe I want this for all of my schools inside of there. So if you do use one letter for all of your schools, you would just name it and then choose all of your schools. Or if you're used to being able to do a letter that says something differently for each one of your schools, you can set that up as well. The next thing that you have to set up is what is the incident type. So we know that in incidents, there's these two types that we have called discipline and teacher referral. Discipline is pretty much everything that comes over into that incident management side. If you are using the teacher referral process, you can, set one up for those, or you can set one up for discipline. So you'll need to choose the one that you know you're tagging your incidents with as you're setting your discipline up inside of PowerSchool. And then which action code is this letter to be associated with? So of course, in my case with an OSS letter, it's going to be to this out of school suspension right here. So if you wanted a separate letter for if a student is expelled, a separate letter if a student is in school suspension, a separate letter if a student is going to have a hearing process inside of there, you would just choose which one of these actions you're going to have go to that letter. So in this case, out of school suspension. Is it a subcode that it needs to go to? Because we know that with our SIR codes, we get all of these here, but we do have the ability to do local use codes. I know probably one of the biggest local use codes out there is detention. When there's an incident that they want to assign a detention with, and maybe you want to send a detention letter home to your parents. If that's the case, and this was a detention letter, I would just come to local use here and then find that detention subcode. So you can tier it down to your subcodes of your local use codes inside of incident management. But I'm going to back that off because this is not a local use situation. So suspended out of school. Now here's where you get the flexibility of how to build that actual report. So the first thing you want to do is, what do you want your opening paragraph to be? So if I pop this letter back open, here is what it defines as the opening paragraph. It's going to be what comes after the dear parent or guardian and what's going to be right above your actual discipline details that's going to pull out of that incident you entered into PowerSchool. So I just have this verbiage here, not saying that this is the verbiage that you have to use, but just an example. There are a few smart tags right here that you can use. So for example, I want it to say son or daughter, because if you notice in mine, it says, this is Mickey Mouse, it says your son has been involved in the incident below, just because I wanted to use a pronoun tag inside of there. Also notice here, it actually says Mickey's name. So it's kind of like a mail merge feature where you can put those smart tags inside of there and it'll pull the names. Now, this is in its infancy, and PowerSchool even admits this product right here is in its infancy as far as discipline letters. So these are the only tags that you can use right now. So you can have it to pull the word son, daughter, he, she, lowercase or capital, his, her, lowercase, capital, him, her, and then student's first name. So if you'll see here that I pulled that son, daughter tag here, and you'll see that I pulled the student's first name here. So if you want those to be like a mail merge and populate those values in for you so that you can make it a personalized letter when you're sending it to the parents, this is what you have. I kind of feel like they'll add more tags in at some point in time, but with it being as new as this feature is, this is what they have to get it off of the ground. So you customize your opening paragraph. Then you have a customization for your closing paragraph. So again, you just type in exactly what you want. So if I pop my letter back open here, this is what it considers the closing paragraph. So I put all of this information here into that closing paragraph. You might have certain things that you need to go in there. So you just type to your heart's content what you want to come up under that discipline information. Noticed again, I did use those tags a couple of times to pull that information, because right here I said, if you want to appeal this or request for a meeting for this, then if you want to give Mickey's perspective, it's always going to tag that student up here. It will never pull information on another student, even if it's like a fight where two kids have been connected. It's going to stay localized to that one student so that we make sure we're not violating any FERPA laws in this report. And then there's an area for a signature. Now, I just kind of stuck this little note area down here, but if you wanted it, since you can make these independent for schools, you could put things like, Principal Stacy Royster, or signed by Assistant Principal so-and-so, or literally, if I wanted to come here and, well, my screen is stuck, type in signature. Okay, yeah, my keyboard stopped working all of a sudden. Let's see if I can do it from up here. So I don't know what's going on with my keyboard during this live, but if I want to type in signature and then put some dashed lines so that it would pull a signature inside of here, whatever it is that you type is going to be inside of this right here. So very easy setup, very minimal entry by the districts. And literally that's all it takes to create the letters. So you can create the letters per school, per district, or however you need to. Oh, I hit the character limit. Thank you, Tony, for catching that because I didn't even pay attention to that. So if I wanted to take this off, there we go. So 250 characters, because for it being a signature area, it couldn't be, very small. So let's say I wanted to do parent signature or principal signature or whatever it is. I can type this. So whatever I type here, like maybe I want the student to sign it to send it home, and then I want the parent to sign it for it to come back, or something like that. I know there's all kind of different things that districts do out there when it comes to these letters. You create whatever you need there. Someone just asked, can we insert a link? Yeah, this is a free text field. So if you wanted to copy and paste some kind of link to something in there, like maybe it's to your policy, your discipline policy, your code of conduct, if you've got an electronic version of it, something like that, all of that can be entered. Notice you have a pretty good bit of character space in this top area. In fact, let me copy this and delete it. So I think it's a 2,000 character limit in both of these right here. So if you have a very lengthy letter that you used in the past, throw it into Chat GPT and say, hey, reword this and get it down to 2,000 characters and let it reword for you if you need to. I don't know if that character limit can be lifted or not, but still pretty good for in there. Once you get your letter built, whatever wording you want inside of here, click submit. So now I've got this letter that's going to be available at all these schools. So if I wanted to build another letter, like I wanted to build the ISS letter, I simply click new. And everyone's going to start out with a blank slate on this. So when you come to this page, you're going to click new. You're going to name your letter for what you want. You're going to choose what school is going to be able to run this letter. And it still works if you're in the old UI. Somebody just asked, this is not native to just the new UI. It's old UI as well. And I would say discipline. All right, which action code? Well, since this is an ISS letter, then I'm going to come down here and choose suspended in school. I wouldn't need a subcode because, again, subcodes are only if you do a local use. So if you're going to do a discipline or something like this, then I would just type, whatever this is going to be for my opening, type whatever this is going to be for my closing, and type whatever is going to be for my signature. And if it's something you use on all of them, you can copy and paste if you need to. And submit. Someone asked, is there a way to pull DAT tags from this so we can use it in reports we've created in MBA reports? No, there's not going to be a way to do that because that's going to be two separate things. So once you have all of your letters built for your district, for your schools, all it is then a matter of running it for a student. So you can run these letters at district office. You can run these letters at the school level. It does not matter. So to run the letter, it is a system report letter, which means you do have to have whoever you want it run for as part of your current student selection. So I've got Mickey Mouse right here, and I want to go into Mickey's record for a second to show you his discipline because I want to show you what it's going to pull. So if I go into his behavior and go into incidents, and I've got that little click because I do have the plugin installed where it lists my incidents in chronological order from newest to oldest now, because I know it was driving everybody crazy always seeing the oldest discipline first. So here I can see the incidents that have been happening for this school year. And so I want to look at this fight right here on 9/7. So I'm going to click into this fight. So inside of here, notice it is the incident type discipline. And that's kind of one of those triggers that was asked inside that letter when it says, do you want to run this for your discipline incidents or for your teacher referral incidents? If you're choosing more than one, if you're not triggering them all to go over to discipline, then you will have to build separate letters for each one of those. Hopefully most of those are being pulled to discipline. When you go to run the report, it's going to be very important that you know the date the incident occurred, because when you go to run the reports and system reports, this is what it's going to trigger to pull them on. is going to be this date right here. So you can look across the date range or you can pick out a singular date. And I know most of the time when you're working in real time, a teacher has just written a referral. I've just entered it in on Mickey Mouse and I want to turn right around and print that letter out for him to take home. I know that that's how it happens. When it comes to the title, it's not going to pull the title and it's not going to pull anything in the description. Now, there's a lot of people out in the PowerSchool community who've seen this update and they're throwing a fit that it does not pull the description. But I'm going to tell you, I'm very grateful that it does not pull the description, because what do most people put in the description, especially when it's a fight between two people? A lot of times you see other children get named in these referrals, and you do not want that to be printed on a report to send home, and then you end up causing some VERPA violation. So they are very intentional about having it not be able to pull some of these fields where other people can be named that would get you in trouble. So they're keeping you from getting yourself in trouble here. So I love that they don't pull that description. We don't really need it with what it's going to pull. So you've got all this information here, but what it really is looking at is what you have inside of here. So notice I have two students attached to this. So Wednesday Addams and Mickey Mouse got into a fight. When I run this, if I run it for Mickey, it's only going to pull Mickey's stuff, even though it's got Wednesday's information here. If I run it for Wednesday, it's only going to pull Wednesday stuff. It's not going to pull Mickey stuff. And if I decide to run them both at the same time, because I've got them both sitting in my office and I'm handing it to them as I'm giving them their consequences, then when I run them, it's going to give me two PDFs and it's not going to mention either one of them when I run them together. Okay. I want to look at the actual action, because this is where the devil in the details is. So if I look at this out of school suspension, I'll click on the pencil. The first thing that it's going to pull in that report, so let me go back to it. See this information right here? Let me make that a little bigger. Y'all got tired eyes like I do. See this information in this kind of chart right here? The date. That's the date that you put, let me close back out of that, here. So the date that it pulls in this chart here is the date of the overall incident. Now let me go back into here. The next part is the action. So you see action is suspended out of school. That's pulling from whatever code you choose right here. Action suspended out of school, which should match the code that you have. It should only allow you to print this on him if you pull that, because of how we tagged it. The next thing is going to be the start and the end date. So if I go back to my letter, you see how there's a start date of 9/7 and an end date of 9/8 in this area right here in the center? All right, let's go back here. Notice, what's the begin date of the action? What's the end date of the action? So it's pulling these two dates right here, because as you send the letter home, remember that this is the expected end date and the actual end date is the resolution date. So in the update that went out this weekend, or past weekend, last weekend, I was out last week, so my weeks are off. We did change these names right here because a lot of people were having issues with that actual resolution date, knowing what it meant. So now you see begin date, expected end date, and the actual end date. When you start out with these consequences, those dates are going to be the same. I'm expecting to suspend Mickey for 2 days out of school. He's sitting in my office right now, and he's not going to be here, today, tomorrow, or tomorrow and today, whichever we're going to do. If something happens and I need to extend, a lot of times, like if this had been a 10-day suspension, but you allowed them to appeal and you said, okay, we're going to lower that to a 5-day suspension, then that comes later. We don't know that until that, way after that letter's gone home. So those dates are going to be the same unless you extend or shorten, and then you would change that actual one. But these are the two dates that it's going to pull from for that letter. The next thing in that letter is a duration. Well, we don't have duration codes set up across the state. We don't use that code set, so we're not going to have anything there. Action taken detail. Now, this is where if you really need to put some details in there to tell parents, you kind of get this little golden egg to do. So notice it says 2 days out of school suspension. That is actually pulling from this field right here. Now, this field is not required for state reporting at all. It's not a mandatory field. But if you want to use this field to enter in information so it can pull into that report, you need to know that that's when you can use that. So if I wanted to write 2 days OSS, or call parent, discuss with, and assign 2 days OSS, you put whatever you need to right there. Just do not mention another student, but put that detail there, and whatever detail you enter will end up right here in this column for action taken. The next one is the behavior. So it's going to pull whatever behavior code you have. So notice I have fighting. So whichever one of those codes you have from this list is what it's going to pull out for that letter. And then the last one is an object. And we don't, let's see, do we even have any objects? I don't think that we have any objects listed in here. If I were to add an object, yeah, all I've got, I think that's just a blank one that we've gone around. That's going to be another one that we're not really going to be using. So duration and object, perfectly fine that those right there are blank. But this is the important information that I wanted you to know where it's coming from inside of that discipline incident. And the biggest thing is that you have this area of this action taken detail to be able to pull inside of there. So again, that's when you're creating the actual action, this right here, which is not state mandated, but is needed if you want to be able to pull this. Okay, so I'm going to cancel that because we've got everything inside of there. So notice this is for Mickey and for Wednesday. So I've got the discipline in there. Now I want to print the letters so I can send them home to the parents. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. And notice the only student I have selected is Mickey. So I'm going to do this a couple of ways so you can see how it will produce these reports. So all I want to do right now is run this letter for Mickey Mouse for him to send home. So it's going to be under data and reporting, reports, and system reports. And the old UIs, everybody know how to get to this page of system reports where you get the attendance profile, discipline profile, all that. It's in the same area. So if you scroll down to the discipline area, do you notice you have this new report called discipline incident letters? Now, for my people on here who are the PowerSchool administrators who assign security, this is a new report inside of security, so you are going to have to set up that page permission for this. Remember, and let me just open up a new tab. I don't want to lose those system reports. There is an entire page called System Report Security in the old UI and the new UI. When I show you this grid, you're going to go, I know what you're talking about. It's where we had to go turn on like the health reports for everyone. You, by security group, get to choose who can see these reports. So because this is a new report, right now, everybody in my little pilot sandbox can run this report. So you need to look at your groups and decide who should actually be the one to run the report. Because when it rolls this out, everybody by default gets it. You don't want everybody to run these discipline letters. You need to come adjust this. So right now, if I were to double click, notice I just turned it off for everybody. So who actually needs to see this? Well, depending on how you have your discipline set out, like I've got a group that all they do is discipline. So I know I need them to have it. So I'm just going to click that one little checkbox right there. So it's kind of like the crosshairs where you just find where you want it. Maybe I want, district administrators to be able to do it. I need school administrators to be able to do it. You go through and choose who you want to have that permission so that that actually shows up on that page, and then hit submit. Yes, I want to make those changes. So you have to remember to go in and turn these security reports on for those who need to see this. So now that I have it turned on for who needs it on, I have this discipline incident letter. So I had Mickey Mouse chosen, so remember that. I'm going to click on the discipline incident letter. Oh, and it looks like I just turned off security permissions. So let me turn those back on. All right, so turn it back on for everybody. Yep, I want to make those changes. That's what I get for playing around with my security mid-demo. All right, so that is updated. Now let's go back to data and reporting and system reports. I come back to the discipline area. And now I get this area to look at. So you can kind of read the comments up here, but I want to walk you through these. So the first thing is, who do you want to run this for? Well, do I just want to run it for that one selected student that I have? Or do I want to run it for all students? Now, I will tell you, currently, and we found this when we were testing, for large districts trying to run this on large groups of students, there's a bug that will prevent it from running if you're trying to run it for large numbers. The fix for that bug is currently in our pilot that we're hoping to get processed through this week and installed this weekend for you. So if you've already gone around and played with this and you're a larger district and it failed, note that the update that's fixing this is coming out, hopefully, fingers crossed, this weekend. If not, it'll definitely be next weekend, but I'm pressing for this weekend. The next thing you need to do is remember that incident date that I pointed to on that discipline? What date do you want to run? I can do a single date if I have just a specific entry that I'm trying to find, or if I'm really trying to run something for everything on this kid, I can run an entire date range and it will pick up all of them and kind of build a chart of multiple incidents for the student. So in that incident that I just showed you, it particularly happened on 9/7. So I'm just going to go in and put 9/7/2023 because I only want to pull that one incident for this letter. Which letter to use? Okay, nothing's populating. So why is it telling me that I don't have anything right there? Well, what school am I in? I'm at district office. When I set that letter up, did I choose district office to be able to choose this letter? I did not. So it's not allowing me to pick anything. So let me swap over to the high school. This is how that security is on that letter setup that I showed, where if you don't choose that school, it will not allow that letter to populate as a choice for that student. So if I pick Mickey Mouse here and then go to reports and system reports, and now go into my discipline letter, and now, do you see I actually have something here? Whereas when I was in district office, I didn't. And I'll tell you, if you try to run this without that selected, it won't let you because that is a required field. There's a few things required on here. So now let me go back and choose that 9/7/23 date because I know that's the date that I wrote that referral. And I can choose. So right now I have two choices. I have an out of school suspension letter. I have an in school suspension letter. So which one applies? Well, I know I just assigned Mickey out of school suspension. So that's the one that I want to choose. Now, here's where you get some options. What all do you want to actually print on that letter? Well, right now I've got yes chosen for everything because I wanted y'all to see all of this. So let's look. Do you want to print the school header? Okay, what does that mean? That means, do you want this information up here at the top of your letter? If you do, then you want to choose yes on that school letter. Do you want to, now it's going to go through that chart area of it. Do you want to include behavior, duration, object, action taken? Okay, so if I come over here, that's this right here. Do I want to include duration, behavior, object, and action taken? Well, right now I've got yes chosen because I wanted you to know what they were. But I know that we don't use duration and object. So if I don't want those in there and I want to clean this up a little bit, I can say on these, no, I don't want that and I don't want that because we don't use them. yes, I want the action detail comments because I entered some in. If you didn't enter any in, you can put no and it'll clean that chart up and not leave a blank. Do you want the student ID? So do you want identification about the student in here? So right here, do you see this information right here in this area? That's what this is asking. Do you want the ID? Do you want the full name, the date of birth, the gender, the address, and where it occurred? I've just got yes selected, but you make the choice. Do you want all of that? Maybe you don't want the student ID. Maybe you don't want the gender. If you don't, you just click no. If you do, you click yes. And these, whatever you leave them on, the next time you come in here, they pretty much stay that. So now, do you want to run it now or do you want to schedule it? I don't know many people who schedule these out. This is something I want to print now because Mickey's sitting in front of me and I want him to send this letter home to his mama and hope that it makes it there. So I'm going to hit submit. It's going to then take this letter and it's going to put it in the report queue. So you'll see up here in my report queue, it is pending. So I'm going to refresh. For one student, it typically does not take very long at all. And you'll see it's completed. So when I click, it's going to throw open this PDF file. So it's going to download that to your downloads folder where you will then be able to open it. And now there is my letter. So that's the information I put at the header or the opening paragraph that it called. There was my closing paragraph. Notice it's shortened because I took out those two blank columns that was inside of there because I know we don't use the object and we didn't use a duration here. And you saw how I closed that signature with having a signature and a parent signature. So that's what it looks like right there if you wanted to use that. Okay. So that was just because I had Mickey as that one person in there. So can this be run if you have multiple students? Like you had Mickey and Wednesday both in a fight and I need to print a letter for both of them to go home to their parents. Yes, you can. So I'm going to look up Wednesday and I'm going to add her down there. So do you now see that I have two students selected in my student selection? All right, let's go back to reports and system reports. And I'm going to run that discipline letter one more time and we'll let you see how it pulls both of them at the same time. So I go back into discipline letters. And notice this time, do I want to run it for the two selected students? And that's what's chosen. Yes, I do. All right, what was the incident date? It was 9/7/2023. Now remember, I put the same date because I'm just running it for that one. If I wanted to say everything from 9/7 to whatever, it's going to pull all of the incidents in that date range that are assigned to these students. I want the out of school. Oh, it did not save. It defaults everything to yes. It didn't save those two. So I don't want these two. I'm going to submit. Oh, it's because I didn't check my box over here to default it. I was like, why did it not default? If you check these right here, it defaults and it'll keep those there. So it sends it back to my report queue right here. Give it a second and refresh. And it has completed. Runs pretty quickly. Downloads me a new file. And now you'll see, here is my letter. Let me zoom in a little bit. Here's my letter for Wednesday. Notice nowhere in here does it mention anything about Mickey, even though you and I both know that they're connected together in that fight. It just says, your daughter's been in the incident below and I'm placing Wednesday in out of school suspension. Here's her information. And even if, she was suspended 2 days and he was suspended 3 days, it's going to pull whatever's different on both of them. And then down here is Mickey's letter. So it becomes a 2-page PDF that you can then print out, have them sign, send off, or whatever you need to. Okay. So that's how easy it is to set these up. The biggest thing is y'all are starting out of the box. So at district office, you don't have any letters set up. So if you tried to run, I see a couple of people saying in the comments, they're trying to run a letter now and it says there's no letters because that means they've got to be set up first. So if you missed the first part of this, it is being recorded. You do have to do that discipline setup at district office. So we'll go back there just to show you where that's at. district management, behavior. If you don't have letters here and they're not tied, so one of the things you might want to keep in mind, if you do want to be able to print these from district office, you need to make sure that you've got district office. Well, it won't let you do it from district office. You have to do it from a school. So there we go. The letters are set up at district, but you have to pull it from a school because it doesn't give you that option as one of them to choose here. So meet as a district and decide how you want those to be coded, and then y'all can start printing them. And there is an update coming this weekend, fingers crossed. If not, it'll be next weekend for any larger schools where it will fail on some of those runs. Had a couple of questions to come in. The letter was pulled out last weekend, so I think that fixes probably what they're talking about with you being. Yes, this is being recorded. Someone else said getting snagged on the letter to use section. I keep getting an error underneath the drop down that says missing required field, and I don't have options under letter to use. So make sure that those are set up at district office first. Yeah, Ben, I think because you're that larger district just in population, because when we were doing this in pilot, like everything ran fine for me in Opelika's database of the pilot, but yet when we tried to use like the Baldwin data was bigger, it would fail. So larger districts, that update this weekend is going to fix that. Monica, can we customize our header or upload an image for the header? Unfortunately, it's not that developed and sophisticated yet, so it's just going to pull that kind of scripted text information for right now. Like I said, this functionality is in its very much infancy inside of there. So I'm very anxious to see where they go with it, but I really love that we just have the option to pull something out of here now, because you couldn't do it in an object report, and we all had the struggle with report works. Jillian, can you show again how to find the letter in the school section? So how to run it on a student, Jillian? Yes. So you'll have to be at the school. So I'm going to go back to the high school. And you'll need to have a student selected because it's running off of that group, because you don't want to run it for the whole school. Go to data and reporting, reports, and it's under system reports. So if you're in the old UI over on that left-hand side on the main screen under the reports kind of subheader, there's system reports. If you'll click on that, it'll bring you to this same page that I'm going to here. And if you scroll down, it's going to be in this discipline area. You should see a new one that says discipline incident letters. And again, that's only if your district has gone ahead and set up the security by turning that actual report on. Every one of the reports on this page right here is controlled by that system report security settings. Would you mind sharing a screenshot of your example letter? Sure. In fact, what I'll do is when I send out the recording to this, I'll attach the PDF of this just so that y'all have it as an example, because Mickey and Wednesday are not real children who really have discipline, even though they fight all the time in our PowerSchool right here. Any other questions from anyone? Is there any way that the letter is booked to the student in PowerSchool so that we could pull it later? No, there's no way that it keeps in there, Jana. It's one of the things where you could, if you want to, use document attachment to upload the PDF back to the student, but it doesn't keep like historical knowledge of it, because you can go back and run it at any time. All right, anything else? All right, what I'm going to do is stop the recording.